Pressed but not crushed. Rwanda Genocide testimony. First and foremost, I give all glory and thanks to God, who sustained me in my darkest moments, gave me breath when I had none, and turned my pain into a testimony of hope. To the survivors known and unknown, who carry silent stories in their hearts, I write this for you. Your courage, your tears, and your resilience are the true heartbeat of this book. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for continuing. To my family, who walked beside me as I relived painful memories. To write this story, your love has been my refuge. To those I lost during the genocide, this book carries your names in every line. You are never forgotten. To the Rwandan people, your strength in rebuilding, forgiving, and striving for unity is a living miracle. May this story stand as a witness to what you've overcome and the light you've become to the world. To my mentors, editors, and advisors, thank you for believing in this story and guiding it with compassion and care. Your wisdom helped shape these words into something meaningful. To the readers, thank you. By reading this, you honor the memory of those who were lost and commit to being a voice for justice and peace. Finally, to those who said, "The world must never forget," thank you for not looking away. This book is my voice, but it belongs to many. Together, we remember. Together, we rise, pressed but not crushed. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. 2 Corinthians 4:8. There are moments in history when time seems to stop, when life as it was vanishes in a single breath. For me, and for countless others, that moment came in 1994. I was just a child in Rwanda, full of dreams, laughter, and the innocence that comes with not knowing how cruel the world can be. Then, in only 100 days, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered in the Rwandan Genocide. Neighbors turned on neighbors. Churches became graves. Families were shattered, homes destroyed, and hearts torn beyond recognition. This book is not just a recollection of horror. It is a testimony of survival, of faith, of a God who held me when all else fell apart. It is about what it means to be human in the face of inhumanity. It is about how light can still shine even in the darkest places. Pressed but not crushed is not a history lesson, though it carries the weight of truth. It is a personal journey through loss, fear, escape, and ultimately, healing. It is the story of pain, but also of forgiveness, of walking among the ruins and finding flowers growing between the cracks. For every survivor who lost someone they loved, for every voice silenced too soon, for every reader who dares to look into history and say, "Never again." This book is for you. As you turn these pages, I invite you to remember, to feel, to learn, and to hope. Because even when we are pressed on every side, we are not crushed. Rwanda, before the storm. Nestled in the heart of East Africa, Rwanda is a small, lush country often referred to as the land of 1,000 hills. Rolling green landscapes, calm lakes, and mist-covered mountains define its breathtaking beauty. But beyond its scenic charm lies a complex history, a history that would one day lead to one of the most horrific genocides in modern times. Before the storm of 1994, Rwanda was a nation rich in tradition and community. The people of Rwanda belonged primarily to 3 ethnic groups: the Hutu, the Tutsi, and the Twa. These were not rigid, separate races, but rather social categories that evolved over time, particularly under foreign influence. The origins of unity. For centuries, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa lived together, spoke the same language Kinyarwanda, and shared the same culture, religion, and customs. Intermarriage was common, and identity was often based more on family background and livelihood than appearance or bloodline. The Hutu, who made up the majority of the population, were mostly farmers. The Tutsi, a minority, were traditionally cattle herders. The Twa, the smallest group, were forest dwellers and potters. Social mobility existed. One could become recognized as Tutsi through the accumulation of wealth and cattle. Likewise, a Tutsi who lost his wealth could be considered Hutu. Rwanda, like many African countries, began to push for independence from colonial rule. During this period, Belgian support shifted from the Tutsi elite to the Hutu majority. This transition, however, was not peaceful. In 1959, violence erupted in what became known as the Hutu Revolution. Tutsis were attacked, thousands were killed, and many more fled the country, seeking refuge in neighboring Uganda, Burundi, and the Congo. This marked the beginning of a mass exile that would shape Rwanda's future conflicts. In 1962, Rwanda gained independence, and the first Hutu-led government was established. For Tutsis who remained in the country, life became increasingly difficult. They faced discrimination, limited educational and professional opportunities, and were often seen as a threat to national stability. Tensions simmer. The Tutsi exiles did not forget their homeland. Many dreamed of returning and reuniting with their families. In the late 1980s, some of these exiles formed a rebel group known as the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF. Led by Paul Kagame, the RPF launched attacks from Uganda, hoping to force their way back into Rwanda and claim equal rights. The Rwandan government, led by President Juvenal Habyarimana, portrayed the RPF as invaders and enemies of the state. Anti-Tutsi propaganda became widespread, fueled by politicians and radio broadcasts that depicted Tutsis as dangerous traitors plotting to take over the country. This fear was deliberately inflamed to unite the Hutu population against a common enemy. Beneath the surface, Rwanda had become a nation on edge. Political tensions, economic struggles, and ethnic divisions formed a ticking time bomb. What had once been a land of community and shared culture now felt increasingly fragile, as hate took root and suspicion grew. A quiet before the storm. By the early 1990s, Rwanda was deeply divided. Peace talks between the government and the RPF were ongoing, but trust was minimal. Hutu extremists feared losing their power. They began organizing militias, training young men, and collecting weapons in preparation for what they called the final solution to the Tutsi problem. And yet, life for many Rwandans carried on. Markets bustled, schools were in session, and farmers worked the land. Few could imagine that in a matter of weeks, neighbors would turn on neighbors, and rivers would run red. In April 1994, when President Habyarimana's plane was shot down, it served as the spark that ignited a genocide that had been carefully planned for years. What followed was a nightmare that lasted 100 days and took nearly 1 million lives. But before the storm came the silence, and before the division came the unity. Understanding Rwanda before 1994 is essential, not just to see how things fell apart, but to remember what was lost. A shared identity, a sense of brotherhood, and a belief that people were more alike than different. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. I was just 8 years old when the genocide occurred in our country. The persecution intensified when people were slaughtered, and houses were set on fire. It included slaughtering and feasting on people's livestock. The killers used candle weapons like machetes, clubs, arrows, spears, and other blunt objects. They could burn the people inside their buildings with no mercy. 100 days and nights were restless, sleepless, sorrowful, painful, and full of hunger. Innocent people were killed like insects without mercy or pity. Fathers killed their wives. Children killed their parents. Friends forgot all the deeds they had ever shared. And those in love betrayed each other. Thousands and thousands of people lost their lives. Children were left as orphans, including me and many others. Significant scars inflicted on our hearts. I was there and saw exceedingly terrible things that I cannot explain explicitly. I lost great people. Unluckily, they departed from me. Scholars, the most celebrated politicians, and patriots. The strong and wise men left without a goodbye. There was no one to bury them. Only dogs and eagles enjoyed and feasted on them in the mountains and the valleys. They had plans in their lives. They had targets in their hearts and goals in their mind, but achieved nothing. Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but the Lord's purpose prevails.
Like, share, and subscribe for part 2.